Om Shri Sai Ram, offering our most humble and prayerful salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. Sai Ram and welcome to all for this next episode of Sai Ram Katha. Let's begin our evening with our prayer and we take it forward from there. Please join me in that. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram. It gives me another pleasure to continue this beautiful journey, dwelling into the life and teaching of an avatar. And from this exploration, if I may say so, it gives us great insight into not only the life of an avatar, but also how one is expected to live and what does it mean to live like an avatar. The perfection of Ram I don't think can be ever comprehended in fullness. But this exercise, which by the grace of Lord we are venturing into, does give some kind of a glimpse to all of us to understand the depth and the magnitude of this beautiful life and the purpose of it. So let us continue this beautiful journey where our Lord Hanuman had left us. He informed Ram everything was going very fine, and now we take it forward. So let me bring in my brother Ranganath Raju here. Sai Ram Raju.
Sai Ram.
So let us continue this journey, Raju, in which we see how now, since everybody has been formally informed about Mother Sita's location, and now the whole convoy and Avatar with his army of so-called Vanaras and reach the bears and monkeys. They are marching towards Lanka. And in that journey, they reach the shores of the ocean. So this is where the story has now led us to. So we'll continue from there. And that is a very another, like as we said before also, that every stage of Ramayana, there is something to learn and there is something to really absorb how Avatar conducts in each step of his life. So when they reach, let me finish the story part, then we can jump into the discussion. So when they reach the shores, the point is now they look at a huge ocean in front of them, and obviously they are looking at this vastness of ocean in front of them, and now they're wondering how do we move forward from there and what should be the strategy next. And that is where they are given this, let's pray. Ram says, we'll ask the way from ocean itself. And it seems for 3 days Ram worships, prays to ocean. It's very interesting to see here Ram, who has shown in so many ways his prowess, his strengths, his abilities. Yet when this time comes, he first step for Ram is to ask for way. And when after days of worship or pleading. There is no response from ocean god. Ram gets up and says to Lakshman, "Bring me my gandit, my dhanush, my bow and arrow," with an intent to dry the ocean up. And he actually roars and he says, "If you have not heard me and you are pretending to be deaf, you have mistaken my pleading to be my weakness. I will dry you up, and my army can walk instead of not even swim. They will walk across Lanka if that is so." And he picks up the bow and arrow. Now that is sight to be imagined, right? A very polite, humble Ram picking up his bow and pointing it to the ocean. And Bhagwan beautifully writes that at that moment it was like a Brahmastra being invoked by Bhagwan Ram. And that Brahmastra, when it is pointed towards ocean, there is the whole cosmic drama. There is a wave and crumbling in the skies, and ocean waves are rising. There is a tremble in the earth. So everybody is shaken up. And there appears the ocean god. And this ocean god comes and falls at the feet of Lord and he says, "I'm so sorry. I really mistook you as a mortal, a human. And it was not out of it is only out of my ignorance that has happened. I will." Now he goes ahead and he says, "I will certainly do whatever in my capacity to let you and your whole army to cross and walk over me." Here Bhagwan makes a very beautiful statement. He says, "Then they hear Akashvani." Akashvani is like an announcement from the skies. Akash is sky, space, and Vani is the sound. And they say that there was an Akashvani, a sound from space, sky, which says that you have Nal and Neel, who are actually children of the Lord of architectural god. What is her name?
Vishwakarma.
Vishwakarma. And they say that he is there and they will help you to build it up. So forgive it. So that is how Ram agrees to that. Okay. But then Ram points it to Ocean and says, "Ocean, I have my will, I have the pledge that if I pull the arrow with an intent to shoot, then I can't withdraw it. So you tell me, where should I?" So we'll take this part little later. So Raju, let me pause here because this itself is a very beautiful starting point when we are seeing how Bhagwan Ram starts with softness, with prayer, and then when the prayer is not accepted, he takes a valorous form, and then ocean god comes seeking forgiveness, and there is an Akashvani offering the solution. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, brother. So, if we also uh, think, uh, kind of contemplate on this, it becomes very, uh, in the initial phase, it becomes a bit confusing that why should Rama plead? Why is it? Because any act that is done by Avatar has a purpose. It is not done without thinking through. It is not that Rama has. Uh, so Rama is not aware that the ocean would not yield. And for instance, we have in our foyer, in the university foyer, college foyer, there is to be one big, huge photograph of Swami standing on the shores of the ocean. So when
Yes,
Swami went for the first time to the ocean, the waves started increasing, and then there was this necklace of 108 pearls that was brought by the ocean and kept around Swami's feet. Swami said that the ocean has come to pay its obeisance to me. Taking a cue from there, it is not that the ocean is so ignorant that yes, and at a very peripheral level, they act. Probably they might say that, but it is not the. He's the is a sagara, the endless one. So the one who has come from Sagar the endless, also the endless one, which means he's very knowledge. He knows whom is actually confronting. When he could recognize Swami, it may not be that he did not recognize Rama also, but I think both of them were playing because it is as per the avataric dharma that we just post this we see as to why ocean actually had to act like that. If imagine Rama asks and ocean immediately appears, then the drama that Rama picking up the bow and the arrow is set, and then the consequence of it follows. That essential part would have been missed. And I think it's a beautiful probably all of us have seen, like I'm sure all of us will recollect many of those instances where one day Swami came to uh, this was one of the Kodai lists. So uh, the Kodai list was prepared, and then Swami was asking this particular our one of our senior wardens as to whom all he should select. And Swami looks at one boy and says, "I will take this boy." And to the utter shock of all the boys around, the warden gets up and says, "Swami, please don't take this boy. Swami is very indisciplined. No, he does not do all this, all the hostel schedule." Everyone is shocked. Swami says, "No, no, no, I insist that I take." Swami says, "No, Swami, I pray that please you don't take." And Swami looks helplessly, looks at the boys, looks at him and says, "See, what do I do? I can't take you now because warden doesn't want." The boys crestfallen. Everybody thinks, "How could warden do this?" Then he writes a big apology letter to Swami, and then Swami says, "Okay, after 2 days of crying and praying and panting and all that, Swami agrees to take him." So during this, in the Kodai trip, this boy was actually he is carrying a lot of angst towards the warden that I was almost on the verge of being thrown out from the Kodai trip, but it's because of my prayer I could get in. So he was sitting next to this warden, and during one of the dining session, everybody left, and warden puts his hand, pats his uh, thigh, and says very lovingly, "I want to tell you one secret. Please don't hold anything against me." He says, "Why?" You know what happened? The list was shown. Then I proposed your name. Swami said, "You tell him out. I will come and tell that I will take this boy, but you should insist that this boy should not come." Now, it is only now when we look back that Warden was actually a pawn in that entire thing because it allowed this boy to connect deeply to Swami. For 2 days, he was contemplating a Swami, and later he tells me that because of that preparation, every opportunity that he got in Kodai, he reveled it so much. He held it like a pot of gold, like as if the amrutam of every session. He held it so dear to his heart because he felt that it would have been missed. He was given that opportunity. So if the drama was not there, this would not have happened. I kind of feel that probably this is the same reason why Rama also is playing the drama with the Lord of Ocean, that he is asking the ocean first in a very benevolent manner, in a very pleasing manner. Now he tells, "Get me the bow and arrow," and then ocean appears. Probably at a very metaphysical level, he would have commanded the ocean that you stay put, eh, don't come now. Uh, we need this to enact a purpose. There's a purpose behind it. Let's wait and watch. I
Yeah,
just
you can
what do
look
you
at
think
it
of that?
in a way. No, no, you can look at it anyways because it is. It's. I told you, Ramayana is or any life of avatar is a seeming contradiction. At every step, they do both the things. And why
Yeah,
do they do that? It is not any. It's anybody's guess, I would say, because there is always a learning from everything. So even if we can pick up that thread, that he was first showing that how do we approach a problem. So you have to be humble about the problem, but let the humility not become your weakness. So
yeah,
perceived weakness is also wrong. So people who walk on the path of spirituality are because they are humble, they are soft, and they are accommodative. Usually others think that they are, weak, and that is where one has to realize that spirituality is not a game of weaklings, and only one person who has a strength can afford to forgive. I used to joke also with people that if I have a fight with Tyson, Mike Tyson, if I say sorry, forgive you, Mike Tyson, it's foolish. It doesn't make sense because if he just touches me, I'll be gone. So the point is, he can forgive me, I cannot forgive him. So that is the kind of, we have to understand that people who do, if you want to forgive or do charity, it is your status has to be of that nature to do that. So Avatar, when he does humble, that is humility because he is all powerful. He could have commanded, and yet he showed that even he will show you the way that, hello, first you have to request, but let that request not be treated as weakness. So I think it's fantastic that way also. But now look at the second part. Immediately from there, Raju, we get an idea of his divinity also, right there. It
Yes.
doesn't take much time for Avatar to showcase. And when he says, where should I shoot the arrow? What the ocean god says, let me flash that because that is a very interesting. I had actually copied that part because he says, ocean pleaded, towards my northern side, there is a holy place. It is well known as Drumatulya, in the same way as you are well known to this world. Numerous robbers of fearful aspect and deeds, having the sinful Aviras as their chief. Aviras was their head. Drink my waters there. I am not able to bear that touch of those wicked people, the evildoers. O Ram, let this excellent arrow without vain be released over them there. Now, when I read it, there is an interesting aspect here if you read it. First, he says there are people called Drumutulya. And when I did
Okay.
a little search on the Drumutulya, I found it is in Rajasthan. Okay. And this Rajasthan is presently that land has become Maru Desert. So Maru Desert is right now in Jaisalmer. So if anybody would Google Jaisalmer, Maru, they will see that that area itself is that where Ram converted that into a desert. When the arrow fell, it was like a Brahmastra. So imagine a nuclear bomb falling there. So obviously everything would be destroyed. But the beauty is because it was Ram's doing for cleaning up purposes, he not only destroyed those evil people, but he blessed that land. And he blessed it in saying that this will be the most congenial place for cattle rearing, a place with a little of disease. So people will be mostly healthy there and produces tasty roots with a lot of clarified butter. It's like, makhan, as I say, makhan, lot of milk and various kinds of sweet smelling herbs. And that is how he blessed that land. And when you do a little search, and if I'm sure people from Rajasthan would vouch for it, that place has these beautiful attributes. But one thing which caught my attention, Raju, was this part. He's saying, Avirasa is saying that they drink my water there. Now, if you look at the map of Rajasthan, it is far from ocean.
Absolutely.
So I was wondering, like, how can they drink water of ocean right there? And to my pleasant surprise, I'm not saying that this is like any great research I've done, but to my surprise, I find there is a saltwater lake there, which is near Jaipur and Udaipur, Ajmer. There's a saltwater lake still there, which they claim is where the arrow fell. There is a kind of a lok pratha katha that where the arrow had fallen, that is the place. So if I now extrapolate the thought, probably the oceanic water which is flowing underneath was that time could have been in much larger quantity, which these thieves or the tribe of thieves were using it. And ocean god prayed to Ram that because they are drinking my water there, I am feeling the vibrations and it is painful for me. So please save. So do you see the connect? I feel it's mind-boggling sometimes even to imagine that you are talking from Lanka or from I would say
Rameshwar.
Rameshwaram, the southern coast of India. He shoots an arrow straight to Rajasthan, Jaisalmer, Dhruv Tulya. What is your thought in that? It's beautiful.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, it is stunning. That's where people say that even the Thar Desert has come because of this arrow. It has eventually turned into desert.
Yeah,
And
it is
in
part
such
of
a,
Thar Desert. It's part of Thar Desert only. Its whole
yes,
thing is part of Thar Desert. Yes.
in such a wonderful act. I mean, it is a very silent message even to Vanaras that, and also to Ravana if he has the capability to understand uh, that if Rama wanted, there was no need for a bridge. If Rama he could just turn around and shoot from tip of India to another tip of India, from Rameshwaram to Rajasthan, shooting from there to Lanka would have been a child's play. He could have just burned the entire Lanka down. But it is also an opportunity for all these Vanaras to reflect, to tell them that, hey, I don't need a bridge, it's actually for your sake. I think Lord, in His magnanimity, He provides all these clues. It is up to each one to kind of hold them and then reflect and say, why is this opportunity being given to me? Such a glorious act. I would say it's kind of act of compassion, and also look at the way in which so Rama has this woe. It kind of just awes me that Rama is bound by a woe apart from the woe that he would not the one wife, one bow, one arrow, and one word. Second is he would not bend down to women, and uh, and third one is whoever seeks refuge, he would grant them. Apart from that, he also has a vow related to war, that unless and until crossed, unless and until enraged, he would not attack them. That is his vow. Now, coming for Dharmastapana, he needs a reason to cleanse Drumatalya of this Abhirasa and his clan. Unless and until that reason comes out, he cannot eliminate them. And because they're very clever people. They're robberers. They are like the guerrilla warfare. They just rob and disappear. They don't attack in the face. Otherwise, they would have probably felt the heat of Rama's dharma. But now they are so cleverly playing around Rama that Lord Ramachandra also, in a beautiful way, builds the circumstances such that the Lord of Ocean prays to Rama that please eliminate them, and as a prayer, as a request of the Sagara, he acts and he eliminates the Abhirasa and his clan.
Beautiful. Let's look at the bridge now. See, the bridge part is very interesting. But Raju, I would like you to tell the story of Nal and Neel. You know, it'll be nice backdrop on how they were identified and how they became Vanaras and all that. So if you could tell the story of Nal
Yes,
Neel.
and brother, uh, just to add a little bit background, I'm sure as students you can very closely relate. In fact, this comment Swami had made in Trai once. Nala, the story is that very briefly, I'll tell you I'll mention the story that Nala and Neela they were very mischievous kids in their childhood, and they would throw when the sages would meditate. These kids would pick up would pick up all the articles and they would throw them. And once even a very valuable saligrama was thrown into a river and it gets submerged, the sage gets quite angry, and that is when he curses that whatever you throw, especially Nala, it kind of stays afloat. So whatever these two brothers throw, it stays afloat. So that's the curse. Now on the other side, I'm sure all of us as students have gone through this phase where you kind of want to get Swami's attention, and you see that your classmates, your people, your cupboard mates, who are probably not as talented as you are, or probably far more talented than you are, they kind of get Swami's attention, and it kind of gets very complicated when the person who is getting Swami's attention is far more talented and far more knowledge than you are. You cannot beat him in any sense. Like for example, he's the best singer, he's the best orator that you have. So this was the same case with Nala and Hanuman. First time when Nala sees Ramachandra in Kishkinda, he's smitten by Rama. He wants Rama's attention. He wants to be in that word, the form of Rama, the form boy of Ramachandra. But there was this Hanuman who was 10 times more talented than Nala. He was valorous. He had that wit and humor. He had knowledge. He had the spiritual bent of mind. All the while he was 10 steps ahead of Nala. No, so Swami mentioned in those days when Rama and Lakshmana were staying in Kishkinda cave, Hanuman would every day would go and spend time in Rama's cave. He would clean the cave. He would take the fruits. So Nala would attempt to copy Hanuman, but there is Hanuman who is actually 10 steps ahead. Even before Nala could reach the cave, Hanuman has already reached. He has swept. He has cleaned the cave. He has already brought the fruit. So never did an opportunity come to Nala to be very close to Rama like he wanted, and he almost gave up. He almost gave up that desire. Probably he turned hopeless that Rama would never recognize him. I'm sure all of us would have gone through that phase. And the story goes that it seems Nala was so dejected that he withdrew himself. He was sitting somewhere away from all this scene where Sugriva is with Ramachandra and Hanuman, Lakshmana, and Nala is far somewhere, just lost in the crowd, somewhere back because he feels that Rama is ignoring him. He- And suddenly, out of the blue, this voice tells the uh, the crowd that it is Nala who is the messenger. His touch could make every stone afloat. Nala and Nila. So suddenly Rama asks for Nala, and Hanuman runs and taps Nala, who is lost in some uh, of his own monkey Vanara deeds, who taps him and says, Rama is calling you. I'm sure all of us would have at least personally I felt I was sitting once in Kulwant Hall and lost. I was chatting with my classmates, lost in that conversation. I'm sure all of us would have had that. And suddenly someone came running and tapped my shoulder and said, Swami is calling you. That the minute you hear that word that Swami is calling you, your heart leaps and your eyes widen. You just become so energetic that you drop everything and you rush into your room. It's the same thing I'm sure Nala would have experienced. He drops everything and he rushes because it is for this opportunity that Nala has been waiting. All the while, 9 months is waited and now it comes out of the blue. And there he reaches Ramachandra. Rama is waiting for him, and along with him comes his another the cousin Neela, and then Rama blesses them. And for the next 5 days, they are the form boys. Like you have those sessions where the actor of the convocation drama, the hero, gets all the attention of Swami. 5 days, Swami would be with him. Swami would tell him everything, talk to him. In the same way, the next 5 days, those were the days of Nala and Neela. Rama is with them. Rama is talking to them every day, taking updates. I'm sure they would have had a very wonderful time. I mean, it's apart from the bridge. I think these are all the the things that Rama
The
made.
ways of
Yes, touching them.
here, actually, there's a verse which explains that Nala was so important that even the bridge was named after him. And there is a verse here, Dashyojan Vistirnam Shatayojanam Mayatam Dadrash Shurdev Gandharva Nalasetum Sudashkarma. The celestial and Gandharvas, the heavenly musicians, saw Nala's bridge having a width of 10 yojanas and a length of 100 yojanas, which was very difficult to build. I think it's very interesting. Now, here I would like to explain or really get into a little bit about the size and the concept of bridge making. It's a fantastic thought. Look at that. The bridge was, as they are saying, it took 5 days to make, as Raju mentioned. It took 5 days to make. And the size of the bridge, that is another beauty that one has to really understand how humongous this task was. On the first day, they made 14 yojanas. Second, they made 20 yojanas. On third day, it was 21. fourth day it was 22nd, and fifth day 23 yojanas. So if you look at it, according to this calculation, the distance between uh, Indian tip and the Sri Lanka was 100 yojanas. And this is exactly what they are saying when Hanuman leaps. That discussion was going on with monkeys. And when Jatayu tells them that it is 100 yojanas apart and who will jump. So that discussion was on for that. Here I would like to just give an idea that yojana is a word, it is a measurement in this Vedic era of the distances. And I found there are many historians and people who have calculated yojanas from different angles, and they range from 2.5 kilometers to 8 or 9 kilometers. So there's a range. But here we found that it is roughly around 4.8 kilometers, which is around 3 miles. So that is the way they have looked at it. But interesting thing is it is a 1:10 ratio. So the width is 10 yojanas. So even if I take it at a 4.8 or 5 kilometers, so we had a 5 kilometers long width of this bridge, and 100 kilometers long was the length. So you can imagine the areas. Yojanas are from that angle. 100 yojanas on, 10 yojanas, not kilometers, sorry, 10 yojanas width and 100 yojanas length. That was a dimension of this. Another thought which Raju had come, and I would like your thought first. Uh, for a devotee, for that matter, the name of the God is equal to the Lord Himself. So if they write the name of Ram on a stone, then how could they walk on it? So that was another question which came up. They said, no, he wrote Ram everywhere. And then, so I was also having this question in my head, like, really, as a good point, that if I write Sai on a stone or a paper, I will never stamp that paper. I cannot dream of putting a feet on it. So how could these devoted monkeys and vanaras and all that walk on that stone? So I was listening to there is a very beautiful saint from Mathura, Premanandji, and somehow as I would say divine will, his that portion of conversation came on, and he said that story of Ram was a separate incident in which Hanuman is sitting there and with his nail he was scribbling Ram on the stone, and he tosses that stone into the ocean and the water floats. And Ram is watching Hanuman do that. And Ram also picks up one stone and throws it, and that stone drowns. And apparently Ram feels little like odd, and Hanuman smiles and says, Bhagwan, when we write Ram, it has to float because your name is attached to it. But anything which you give up from your own golden, beautiful hands, Kar Kamlo se, whatever you release, that is bound to drown. So this instance was separate and this instance was separate. So when the bridge was constructed, it seems all the things like trees and stones which were being brought in were finally touched by Anil, and they were put into the ocean. So the touching ceremony in a way was done by Nal and Neel. But the writing part was a separate incident. What do you think about it? Isn't it like, I find it so fascinating how only these saints and God can explain to us these beautiful secrets of Ramayana and aspects of it.
Yes, I think it makes logical sense as to what you are saying. That the fact that and Swami also mentions when mentioned this when talks of this story, because I remember now it makes a lot of sense that he says it was on the bank of a river. I very clearly remember that time I was not sure as to. I thought probably Swami is using a wrong word or no immaturity, but now it makes a lot of sense. That would have been a very different scenario and a different time, and this is another time where Nala is touching and these things float, the trees and the boulders.
And the look at the what should I say, the structure of a bridge, how big, humongous bridge it is. I'm not
Yes.
really sure the present what they have found, Ram Setu, what is the dimension of it. I don't think it will be like a, they say 10 yojanas. 10 yojana is roughly around 5 kilometers or 3 miles. Is that the width of the present? I'm not sure. But it is a fantastic thing to note because as we move forward, we'll see how big the large army Ram carried. And so obviously the bridge has to be big enough to carry them. But look at that and this kind of construction. Now we can compare it from today's construction rate and see if this type of bridge has to be made today, how much time it will take. So here it was 14 yojanas were made in one day, and the second 2021, 22, 23. So 23 yojanas maximum they made in one day. You can imagine the speed of construction and the art of construction in the layered format, how they have been doing that. Isn't that fantastic? Like, each time, each element of this, that, when you look at that, it really is fascinating from that angle. And there is one more beautiful story here, which aligns here is that Sugriv goes to Ram and says, Bhagwan, the bridge is complete. So
Yes.
it's a very nice thing. Like Sugriv comes and says, completion is done. Now the bridge is ready. So Ram instructs him that, hey, Sugriv, tell everybody who has been bringing the stones and mountains and trees to wherever they are, leave that stuff. And a thought crept in me that, imagine like Hanumanji is coming from Himalayas, bringing a mountain. So he has to be told there, right? Don't come. So you must have such caliber of people in your second row, third row, fourth row, who could take a leap and go and tell him that, hey, buddy, enough, leave that and come. So imagine when Hanumanji went to Lanka and he said that, Mother, I'm not the only person. I am one of the, there are many more and many, many more than me who are capable in Rama's army. He was in a way not only being humble but not exaggerating because there were people of that caliber who could just take a leap and tell Hanumanji, okay, done. So people are coming from all over the world. So can you imagine that? So why don't you tell us the story of Govardhan Parvat, Raju?
Yes, brother.
That will
So,
be
the as you said, the communication was passed down to leave whatever they are holding at the appropriate places and come back, because now the bridge is complete and additional materials are not required. So Hanuman was carrying a huge mountain from Himalayas. As he hears this, he doesn't want to waste time, so he drops this mountain in one area, and he as he is hastening to come back, he hears a lot of wailing and crying. So he's shocked as to where the sound coming. He sees that it is coming from this mountain, and those days mountains had this strange capability of flying. We see the same thing happening with Mainaka, and so this mountain is crying because it has lost an opportunity to be of some use to Rama's mission. So he says, this mountain says that uh, I will fly and come to Rama's presence. Please make sure that I am used. Hanuman says, no, don't. Rama's instruction is very clear that I should leave the metal as in wherever I am. So you stay here. On your, I will convey your message to Rama and come back. So he leaps again from there to Rama's presence, and he conveys this this prayer that Lord, this mountain is kind of crying. And it's so there is that beautiful episode. Some had mentioned this had happened with it happens with everyone. Probably the human mind makes it up. It happened with Gopikas. The same thing was happening with Vanaras. These Vanaras, they began to feel they have accomplished something that is unthinkable, unimaginable. And now that sense of, I'm sure all of us would have experienced one point of time or the other, that you feel that you are the blessed lot in this entire creation, that there was not a devotee like you, there will never be a devotee like you are the best in this entire creation, now that you are the chosen one. All those thoughts, I'm sure, would have been clicking in all those Vanaras minds. That is when Rama tells, it is a coded message to all the Vanaras. It's also a direct assurance to this Govardhana. He says, another time I will come down. In coming centuries, I will come down again. And that time I will lift this Govardhan Giri, this mountain, to protect my dearest devotees. So it's a very coded message that you are not you alone. There are going to be very dear devotees even in coming times. So don't have that high-headedness. At the same time, it's also an assurance to the Govardhan Giri that, hey, don't worry, the time is going to come. So Hanuman again leaps back and conveys to Govardhan Giri, saying that you wait, this tapas has to be done, you wait. And wait for Rama, he's going to come back and lift you again. So that is a beautiful story of Govardhan Giri. And I'm sure you recollect the story where Swami was in Bhajan Hall. Swami was narrating the challenges that Rama faced, and these boys were leaning onto the the wall, and since it's made of stone, suddenly some of these boys started feeling their thighs and their cloth, their trousers getting wet, and they were kind of getting distracted as to where the wetness is coming from. Swami immediately remarked, saying that yes, hearing the trials and tribulations of Rama, even the stones are crying. So we see here that this massive stone of Govardhana was also crying because it was not able to take part in Rama's mission. And that's how this beautiful Govardhana Giri gets lifted in another time by Lord Krishna. Yes, brother, over to you. I'm sure Al
So,
Kumar sir.
this is another story of the squirrel, which Brother Anil Kumar had mentioned in last few episodes back, in other place, that we had heard this story. I'm sure this is a
Yes,
very common story in Ramayana, that a squirrel was trying to carry a pebble and wanted to offer, and Rama picks it up and caresses it nicely. And he made a very beautiful. I hope he can come back. He's supposed to join us, and he said that the squirrel with stripes is only found in this area of in
in
the world.
Indian, yes, in the subcontinent.
So I find it very fascinating, that how this imprints of Avatar's movement are hidden in such a beautiful manner. So it's a very beautiful thing that that kind of squirrel is still only available in this part, and highlighting that that was a blessed breed which lasted from that side. So it's a very, there are so many fascinating elements which keep appearing. So let me see if Brother Anil is here. Anil is here. Let me. Sharon, Brother Anil, are you there? Oh, sorry, he's not coming. So I think we'll ask him to narrate that. So from here,
Yes,
then it seems it is a Sugriv who makes the request to Ram that, Prabhu, before we start the journey, you should pray to Lord Shiva. And I find it, when I heard Ramayana in the childhood stage, people would always say Ram wanted to do that. But when I read Bhagwan and he says that Sugriv prompted it and Ram happily agreed, and he said, yes, let us find a nice Shivling. So that is where Ram says to him, let us find a nice Shivling and we'll do that. And in that excitement, Hanuman thinks that I should get him a nice Shivling and he leaps off. It seems there is, in Narmada style, there is the whole shaligrams are there. So he went to find a nice shivling shape there. But as destiny would have it, or the divine will would have it, Hanuman could not find the proper shivling in time. And the time was fading out and the auspicious time was getting over. And here Ram, in a very casual manner, discussed with discussed with everybody. In fact, they say that he discussed with Vibhishan and Lakshman, and then he constructed a lingam out of the sand there.
Sand.
That is what the beauty is. Imagine Ram, and when Ram is making, obviously, it has to stay. And when the shivling got completed, Ram started the worship. That is when Hanuman lands there, it seems, with a big shivling. And Hanuman, seeing that Ram is already performing the prayer and he's already finishing it, so he gets kind of dejected. And he places his shivling little away from there. So after the puja is done, invoking of Bhagwan Shiv is done, Bhagwan Ram gets up, and on the way, on his path, was kept that shivling of Hanuman. And Bhagwan Ram says, "Hey, move it." And they had to move it. So it was like another, that as they say, "Jale pe namak chidakna," you are already hurt, and then he'll rub it off on you. So he's rubbing on it and he says, "Move that shivling." And even as Hanuman, such a persona, feels little bad that he could not come on and he missed the chance. And this is where, behind the story, Raju, as we say, Bhagwan said Hanuman was hurt, and Bhagwan Ram, after that, avoided him again. And soon Hanuman realized that there is something amiss. And he is sad. And then Ram goes to Hanuman and says, "Hanuman, why are you sad? Why are you sulking?" He said, "Lord, I'm feeling very bad that I was late and I couldn't, my lingam which I brought could not be used by you." So interestingly, instead of pacifying, Ram becomes a little harsh on him and he says, "Who asked you to go?" So Hanuman was really shocked. And I'm sure as a devotee of Bhagwan Baba and people who have interacted with him can relate to such responses. Bhagwan Ram said, "Who asked you to go? Did I give you direct permission to go?" And that is where Hanuman realized that he did this act on his own will, not as per the command of Bhagwan Ram. So my learning goes that, in excitement as a devotee, and the intents are very pure, that we want to serve the Master, we want to give our best to Bhagwan. And in that excitement, we tend to overdo things. And in that excitement, we tend to cross that line, which is a bond between a devotee and God. That bond of surrender, the bond of complete faith, oneness, we cross. And we want to think that if I can do something great for God, whereas it is only great when He accepts it. How many times we would have made that, let us make the best play for
Yes.
Swami. So it is not the play is best, it is only when He accepts the play becomes best. How many times we say that let us dance for Him, the best dance. So dance is not the best, it is only when He accepts it, it becomes the best. So unfortunately, in an excitement of a devotee, we do cross that. And that is exactly where he got. But look at the grace of Bhagwan. Both the shivlings are presently installed, and people is in Rameshwaram. They are worshipped. I'm sure, Raju, it must have triggered some memories for you too.
Yes, brother. In fact, I just remember my classmate he was in prasadam distribution. This memory is so vivid to me in my 12th. So near the near the back end of the bhajan hall, Swami was standing and this boy was holding that basin, prasadam basin. So Swami was referring to a particular. Remember the chairman of Andhra Bank, the retired chairman of Andhra Bank. He would come for darshan. So Swami is asking about him. So apparently it looked like Swami was holding prasadam, and it looked like Swami wanted to give prasadam to that person, and Swami was tapped as if Swami was looking for him. So he was inquiring. So Swami asked this Anandrao, where is he? And this my classmate, he just put that basin down, ran, shot like an arrow. I was there, right there, and literally like an arrow. Something like that. Swami, why did he run? So this boy ran, and after some 4 5 minutes, he came back panting and all sweating, and he comes back and he's reporting to Swami that he's not able to find this particular person. So what happened was when this boy ran, Swami just turned around, and this particular VIP, this person was actually sitting diagonally a little away, but just diagonally near Swami. So Swami went up to him, and Swami patted him. Swami did not give the prasad to that devotee. He was just asking, casually asked him about some other thing about his health and all that. And then Swami came back. During this 4 minutes, this poor fellow was searching all around, and he came back and was reporting to Swami that Swami, I am not able to find this person. This was the exact same, because it is so vivid. Swami said, who asked you to go? Did I ask you to go? And this boy, we were actually waiting for Swami to appreciate. And we were thinking that Swami would say, no, no, calm down. Swami would generally say like that. When you come back running, no, Swami would say like that, and you steady your breath. But Swami was a little upset. Swami said, who asked you to go? That is when it became clear that prasadam which Swami was holding was actually meant for this fellow. It is not meant for that dude. So in that excitement, this fellow ran, and Swami was so upset that Swami did not give prasadam, just threw it back in the basin. So this is so vivid, and probably now when I think back, Swami wanted to show the disappointment that he held it for those 4 5 minutes, and when he came back, he made this point to him. He ensured that it registered in his mind, and then threw the prasadam back in the basin and walked away. Many times, even when we meet today, he says, hey, I can never forget that instance. You should never be. I thought that I'm actually serving Swami, but that is not what Swami wanted. Swami wanted to bless me in a very different way, but I ended up doing something else. I'm sure I'm sure Hanuman would have actually felt, probably in a much larger scale. Hanuman would have felt a similar guilt and feeling that I missed an opportunity. Why was I so impulsive with Lord?
It's fantastic, Raju. Okay, so Raju, let's continue one more aspect of it, and it's fantastic. And this question, I don't know if this is discussed in that magnitude, is the size of the army.
Yes.
And that is where we found, because when I read and when we realize that Sugriv says he has called all his people, all the Vanaras from all across the world. Can you imagine the bears and monkeys from all around the world, the mammoth beings, arrive in his command, and he's carrying this army to Lanka. And the way they are described this is again phenomenal, and I'm sure people would love to hear the number. And I can't take a guess here. The number is mammoth. The total army is 18,000 billion, which is 1800,000 crores.
18 trillion.
Now imagine so many people
This is Swami's
marching
number.
to London.
I'm just adding, this is Swami's number. Swami is the source of this number.
But this is crazy number.
Yes, yes.
If you think of it, like how many people were there and how did they accommodate? How did they stand in that island? And when we did a little quick search, you can see that today's population of Sri Lanka is 22 crores. So if you put 1800,000 crore people in Sri Lanka island, I think the island would sink. It is huge number, and the area required for it is almost like a Mexico or an Australia. And that is the interesting aspect to understand, that what are we looking at and what time era are we looking at. And here, Raju, I would like you to refer to Professor Oak's research. I think he has done an excellent research in which he has told about the area which is covered by Sri Lanka at that time, the location of Sri Lanka as they call it, and we know from historical perspective also that there was a huge city or a huge state which got immersed into the ocean, and that is another interesting aspect of it. So Raju, you want to take that on and talk about
Just
that?
to yeah, as you said, just to add, Sri Lanka, as the recent research is pointing out very clearly, they have taken sources across the oceanology, geology. Then I think around 592 markers were used to kind of come to this conclusion. What appears like Sri Lanka is just a tiny part of what would have been actually the bigger Lanka. And parallelly, we also very clearly we see from history, which is another pointer for them, is around Plato, the famous Greek philosopher. He talks of the golden city of Atlantis, which approximately was 555 square kilometers. It was somewhere in this area, and around 9000 BC. He says around 9000 BC it sank. Now, if you take 18 trillion monkeys and you say that 1 square foot is required for each one to stand, the area that would be required is approximately around 575 to 600 square kilometers. That's exactly the size of the Atlantis that he was talking about. And we very clearly read across Valmiki's description that when the and Swami also mentions very clearly that when the Vanaras came, it was entire Lanka was packed with Vanaras. There was in Telugu it goes on to say that if you drop sand, there is not even enough space between vanaras for the sand to slide down. It was literally packed. That's exactly matches this description. And now what this research is pointing out is somewhere near the equator was Lanka, the Lanka of Ravana, and that makes a lot of sense because the distance that is required, as mentioned in Ramkatra Savayani, the land, uh, sorry, the bridge size, bridge length, and also the length that Hanuman flew over, and this mammoth effort that is required for Ramachandra to kind of invoke all those, to get all those monkeys and then cross is not the current Lanka. Probably this current Lanka is just a tip of what actually would have been the Sri Lanka that we call the Simhali. We call right now the Sri Lanka, but it's actually it is called the Simhala Desha. This is just a tip of what the original Lanka would have been, and very clearly research is pointing out now that it is the same time when Dwaraka, the city Dwaraka sank. So there, at that point of time, the ocean uh, raised its the ocean levels raised by around 130 to 140 meters. And the similar episode happened again in 9000 BC. Once in 9000 BC, second time in 6000 BC. And these two episodes have kind of completely sunk this golden city much beyond the reach of humans. And that's where we would have lost the original Lanka. And on the in the picture, we very clearly see that somewhere near the equator is Lanka. And as per the mention of Valmiki itself, you draw an equator, which is actually the Greenwich time, sorry, the longitude. It passes through Ujjain, which is considered to be that time the center of the world. From there, this line was passing through Lanka. Now, if you calculate the distance, it also mentions as to there are specific mentions as to what is the time that a star called Agastya is seen from Ujjain, and it is seen from the Mahendragiri of Rameshwaram. So, if you take these two and calculate the distance, you actually kind of come to this area, and that is the area that we hear of right now. The Sri Lanka that we see right now, in our assumption, would have been just a small tip, probably it would have been a royal palace of the royal area of Ravana himself, and
You know,
it may not.
just just
Yes.
to add to your thought, you know, recently I had the blessing of going to Dwarika, and in Dwarika we went to Bet Dwarika, where our prime minister had gone down, you know, under the ocean to see that palace. So what we realized was Bet Dwarika is actually a gift of Sudama to Krishna, and it is actually the house which was gifted by Sudama for Krishna to live. And then Dwarika is the place of his palace where he set up his kingdom. It was actually part of the kingdom, like a capital, where he had his own assembly and all that.
Administrative
So
center.
that is a Dwarika. That's why he's worshipped as a Dwarikadhish, the king of Dwarika. So it was his court. But see, in today's context, it becomes very difficult to comprehend. Like how can you live so far and you come here to just take it, like, you know, it's like a job. You come for work and then you go back home. So Dwarika, Bet Dwarika is an island which is only house of Krishna. And obviously being a king, so don't have only an house like house, but you have all the paraphernalia attached to that. So when I look at that from the Dwapar Yuga's perspective, imagine Treta Yuga, there are things were much more bigger and broader and different. So when you compare it that way, then it's easy to like extrapolate and understand that the tip that we are seeing today, as you rightly said, that probably looks like to me Ravan's palace where he lived and where his close people lived. You know, his personal army, his personal, like our Rashtrapati Bhavan in India. You know, you have a presidential palace in which you have the horses, you have the community, you have the whole, you know, 9 yards there, living there inside for one president. So that whole gamut is big. So look at that Lanka from that perspective, and the rest of the Lanka is drowned, is under the ocean. So that probably makes sense looking at the great work Professor Oak and people like him have done. And that actually gives us a little bit of, you know, clarity about how it is. And this verse also explains the exact location and all that, which you have very beautifully explained here. So now if you look at it that way, then that Lanka, the entry point on a physical level, is still that Ram Setu, which was built by Ram. Okay, and that is where we are now looking at it. Now, if you took the look at this two diagrams, let's look at the first one where it is written Suela. So you can see this Rameshwaram, and then he takes the bridge Ram Setu here, and the Suela mountain is actually a mountain nearest to the palace, which becomes the resting point of Ram. But as we have seen, the army was so huge, so you don't expect the whole army to be in that. So army was totally spread out in Lanka. But the main hub, the central hub, was sitting in the Suela mountain. So that is where you can look at that. And next to that, you can now, if you look at the second one, the post-war diagram, just for reference sake, I'm just sharing with you. Uh, Let me show the other one because that gives you a little bit more clarity here. So if you look at this, Hanuman arrives. So this star which you are seeing is that portion of palace of Lanka. That is what they are explaining. So this portion, Hanuman lands in Pusalvea area here. So number 319, these are all the places. So this is actually the place where the golden, the palace of Ravan was supposed to be. And which makes sense because he kept Sita in a beautiful garden, Ashok Vatika, which was in the vicinity of his palace. So that is where Mother Sita was also there. Vibhishan, because he was worshipping Ram, he had made a hermitage outside that area. So you have that 18 number spot there. So you can see how they have researched already and to make out. So this is the island which they're talking about. Okay. And so if you look at the northern attack, western attack, so one guess could be that this attack was primarily for that location. But since the city was so big, probably the army was fighting all around Lanka, and the focal thrust was right at the palace where Ravan was. So I guess, Raju, this diagram should give a little better idea about how the travels have happened. An interesting thing is that in this, Ram has literally traveled the whole island. Okay, yeah, it's very interesting. Like, see, this is a spot 24 number. If you look at it, this one, he says extinguishes his fire on his tail here. So basically, when he finishes the burning, he jumps, and we know the story. He jumps into the ocean. So obviously, if the palace is in the middle of the island, then for jumping, he has to go to the corner, and that is where he reaches there, and then from there he again flies off. So 21 is where Sursa meets and all that. He's written that is your Ram Setu, and that is where he comes. There's another interesting point, the war diagram, if you look at it. So here, Ram shoots an arrow. Now we are joking about it like, did Ram go there also? But since the army was so big and they were trying to, capture Lanka from all sides, so probably the people who are fighting in this part, Ram would have thrown an arrow from here and, bring out a sweet water lake there for them to drink water and satisfy themselves. So battlefield is right here with Ram. So look at this Lakshmana, and we know from Mahabharata that Lakshmana was actually attacking from the southern side. And this is where they have also researched that 15A is a spot where Lakshmana is resurrected by Hanuman. So he must have brought that Sanjeevani mountain here, and that is where this happens. So I'm sure, sorry, I'm sure if you look at this whole thing, that'll give us a clarity about how Ram's travels must have gone ahead. So Raju, your thoughts on this travels? Anything? It's fantastic to see how they have researched and found out that how Ram has moved and
Yes,
locations which they have touched upon.
Swami very clearly says it's a siege. They have surrounded the Lanka city from the royal palace from all sides. It's literally the title of the chapter, even in Swami's Ram Katha, is the siege of Lanka.
Siege, the siege
Yeah.
of Lanka. Yeah.
So, in fact, that was one of the prime uh, reasons uh, as to Ravana invoking. Probably we'll see it in the coming episodes. Ravana kind of brings in Vibhishana's son Nilasura to fight because he was the only person apart from Ravana who had the capability to defend 8 doors simultaneously, the 8 gates of Lanka, the royal palace simultaneously. It seems so. Uh, so which is another indicator to us that the army was all around, and probably Rama would have been going around, uh, blessing them, talking to them, and kind of giving all the required strength. So at each point of time, you would have done something or the other. It is, and also we are not talking about our heights. We should. I'm sure all of us remember the ring that Swami has created, and those people of 18 feet, 16 feet, and they say even some of the Vanaras were monstrous. Imagine human himself was 18 feet, and imagine a monstrous Vanara. Probably it will have been anywhere between 25 to 30 feet. So it's a very different size
If an
that we are talking.
average height was 16 to 18 feet, then
Yes.
what we call monster has to be 30 feet, 25, 30 feet. Otherwise, he won't be. So you can imagine that. So I'll tell you, Raju, another which interesting thing which I find in Bhagwan's narration is in this whole chaos of war,
Yeah.
how he picks up a time to narrate something so divinely devotional. So here Bhagwan has narrated that Ram sets up his tent on the Sunila mountain, which is Suvela today, Suvela mountain. and we have shown that in the diagram also. And they say that they made a soft bed of leaves and grass for Ram. And and he writes that to give them joy, Ram comes there and sits on it, and then he says, I want to rest. And he lays down and puts his head in the lap of Sugriv and closes his eyes. Imagine in the whole trouble which Sugriv must be managing this large army of 18,000 people. You have a moment when the Lord comes and rests on you. I think it will be an instant rejuvenation of Sugriv, right? When you see the Lord in front in your lap, resting, and they say Hanuman and Angad, they also settle down near him and they start pressing his feet. So imagine all their pressures and tension would have disappeared instantly. And Bhagwan, I always admired this part that Swami, when you're narrating such an aggressive role, and the scene depiction of Swami is very elaborate. He is not, when he describes something, he makes it alive. And in that, when he's literally talking about war, he mentions this episode of devotion right there. And in that, he says Ram opens his eyes after some time as they are all waiting for his command. Ram looks upward towards the east and looks at moon and he says, friends, look at the moon. There's a dark patch on the moon. Don't you see it? Imagine Ram making a statement like that. And each one replies as they saw. Some said, yes, Lord, the moon has a patch. Some said the moon is like that. And they turned to Hanuman and he asked Hanuman, what do you see? And Hanuman says, Lord, I see no blemish. I see no patches. I see only the reflection of your face. And strangely, this is the only episode Bhagwan has written there. And this always, it makes it, it reminds me that, look how he focuses on the beauty of devotion, the positivity of life. And for him, the war or no war doesn't make any difference. But the way Bhagwan brings our mind back to positivity in adversity is beautiful. Raju, you have any memories on that?
Yes, brother. In fact, in one of the discourses, Swami very elaborately describes this scene. So he asked for Sugriva, and Sugriva talks of that black patch as to how it is making ugly, just like Ravana's bad qualities are marring his spiritual achievements. And then since Rama asks Angada as to what does he see, because Angada is a very excited character. He sees in the Indrajit's face, Meghanath's face, and says, "I see that fellow's face. I will slash his head." I'll turn it into a pulp. Swami describes in the discourse, and then Swami asks Ramachandra asks Hanuman as to what does he see, and Rama and Hanuman beautifully says, "I only see your face." And it's a very very poignant message to everyone that each one is seeing the entire scenario as per their mind. Swami goes on to elaborate that Sugriva is because he's carrying so much burden, and he had seen Wali, who was with lot of good qualities, but also had that one bad quality. He's in the same vein he's seeing Ravana. He's also seeing the moon. Angada with that excitement to kill all those people, he's seeing anger. It is being reflected in the face of Indrajit. Well, Hanuman is pure devotion. He's only seeing the moon. I think it's also very subtle message to the reader that probably from Rama's eyes, all this war would not have mattered. Like it's also very profound message even to us that for Swami, all these are the details of how big the army was or how long how much effort went in what all engineering things they did about that bridge and uh, and and what all how great was Ravana, how big was his army. I think those details Swami would have not cared, because for him this war is just an incidental thing. But what is his main goal is, as Swami says, it is Rama Katha Rasavahini. The rasa of Ramayana, Swami is bringing out to us. It is the beautiful interaction of the Lord with his devotees. That if across the chapters that of Ramakatha we find this, as you mentioned very nicely, that these are nuggets of beautiful interaction between the Lord and his devotee. And Swami goes on to elaborate that, and rest all details he just crunches. And he says, at one point of time, he says, Rama, one entire Ramayana war of Rama and Ravana, he finishes in one chapter. And Kumbhakarna don't he doesn't even deserve a mention. He just mentions in one or two lines. While these interactions, it goes on. So it's not only here. Even say, for example, when Bharata was asking, requesting Rama, or when Ayodhya people are following Rama to the forest, or when Rama is talking to rishis, or rishis is talking to Ramachandra, we see that elaboration of Swami. Swami goes on to take about 3 or 4 paragraphs, and he conveys every point in detail. We see the same thing even here. That Swami, in that chaos and confusion, which actually appears to us, but probably for Swami, all that he sees is those beautiful hearts pining for Lord's physical interaction, and Rama is responding. And just to also add one small memory, this one of our senior brothers was talking about, they were supposed uh, to speak the next day for a very important occasion. Some of the very noted guests are coming, and these boys were very tense. You can imagine the second PG, just 21, 20, not even 20, 21. That young boys, and they have to stand up in that huge gathering and speak. And they have been selected apparently by the, I'm sure, the lot of that unwanted, I mean, unknowingly that pressure builds up. First your wing teacher sees you, then your warden reviews his speech, then secretary reviews his speech, and then finally it goes to Swami kind of formally approves. VC comes in, and VC also hears the speech, and then Swami approves. And the mental tension that builds up, the pressure that builds up on the students for giving that speech for those days, those occasions. So they were apparently called to Purnachandra Hall for the final review by Swami for the speech. And these boys were very tensed. They do not know how the next day would turn out to be. They are good orators, but this occasion was something that they're not prepared for. This he had told me very he had told me in detail, so I can so well relate to what is happening with Sugriva and our man Hanuman and Angada. So it seems when Swami calls them, they were sitting, and then Swami asked for tiffin to be brought. So they have come in to be reviewed for their speeches. Swami says, let's have tiffin. So they don't understand. Then the tiffin comes in, and then so many items come in, not one or two, but lot of items. And these boys are bellies are full, and Swami is just sitting, and these boys are they're finished. Now they took a lot of time because there are a lot of items, and apparently Swami just heard one person who was not even the entire speech. He said, "So what are you speaking?" There's some detail, just an outline of the speech. This point wise, this. Not even more, not even a minute spent on the speech. So they were wondering what is happening. When would Swami review these speeches? And these boys, so it's because it's a very close, just 4 or 5 boys. They were sitting around Swami, and they're doing Pad Seva. So 2 boys are doing Pad Seva, 2 boys are holding Swami's hands, and another boy was kneeling, and he was holding this part of Swami because he's just putting his head down. And whenever opportunity comes, he tries to touch with his head, and Swami is not minding. And Swami is very informally talking about many things. 1.5 or 2 hours pass, and Swami says, enough, now I will go. So wondering when will this speech review comes? Nothing, no review happens. Swami says, enough. He gets up and goes. And next days, these boys, they're literally thunder in Kulwanthal. They have never given such fabulous speeches in their lives. And they're wondering, how did all this energy come up? How did this happen? So next day, the secretary calls them and appreciates, saying that very good, fantastic. And then he says, do you realize what is the secret? Because the secretary has that experience. He says, do you realize what is the secret of this speech? He said, no, sir. Just how long did Swami review your speeches? He said, sir, Swami actually has not heard her speeches. Swami said, that is the secret. Swami has called you not to review. He has called you to bless. That divine presence itself is enough. He filled you with all that. Sitting around him, your beings were recharged. I mean, it is not just for this speech, for many speeches to come. He has actually prepared you for a lifetime. Do not think that he has called you to review that he needs to hear. I'm sure taking just cue from there, I'm sure same thing is happening even here. Lord Ramachandra is preparing Sugriva, and next day it is actually Angada who is going to go and shake up the court of Ravana. And look at those three people. The three people who are around Rama is Sugriva holding Rama's head. One leg is of Angada, another leg is Hanuman. And these three characters have played extremely crucial role in the entire war. And Rama is filling them with that divine confidence and the required strength so that they are prepared for the days to come.
Since you mentioned Angada, let's go with that now. Next episode, next version is that. So next day, Bhagwan Ram calls Angad and he says, Angad, I have work for you. And Bhagwan has very beautifully described this part, that how he's expressing Angad that he wants him to go to Lanka, the court of Ravan, and he says the final attempt you have to make on my behalf. So you must go to Lanka, court of Ravan, and try to resolve this issue and see if there is an alternative to war. As they say that war is the last option. So Ram is even following that, and he says Angad is selected. And I can't help but recall that Swami also, even if he had to ask something for us to do, he would close the line with asking, what do you feel? Do you want to do that? Or how can you do that? Or something like that. He'll leave the final question, the answer to all of us. He will never take the final call. He'll never end with a kind of a command. So he gives you the option to say yes or no. And obviously, everybody turns to say yes only. But the option is always given to the person. So Ram also switches the same way and he says to Angad, Angad, would you like to do that? And Angad bows down to Bhagwan Ram and he says, Lord, I'm grateful that you thought me to be worthy of this purpose, this mission. I'll be more than happy to go. And I know some apprehensions may be there because I am the prince. And because being a crown prince, you cannot be risked. So he says, but please have no fear. As I have your blessing on me, nothing will happen to me. So that actually says, made Ram very happy to hear that. See, so it's one thing to say that Ram's protection is there, but when a devotee also acknowledges that, it affirms, and now the Lord has a free hand to do what he wants to do. And then it is beautifully mentioned that Bhagwan Ram takes Angad through the whole process of how he is supposed to be there, how he's supposed to talk, how he should act, how his body demeanor should be, how his voice should be, what content he must speak, and how he must negotiate. All intricate stuff Bhagwan Ram tells Angad. I can't help but recall how Bhagwan used to train each one. I had this privilege of being with Swami when he was teaching us how to give public speeches. And there, he literally stood up and showed us how to stand, how our eyes should be, how our hands should be, how do you speak when you have a podium, how you speak when you don't have a podium, your voice tenure. So it's fantastic, when he sends you either directly or indirectly, he equips you with all of that. So here Angad is equipped by Lord Ram to go to Lanka, the court of Ravana. And he writes it very sweetly that Angad starts walking, marching towards, as he enters the compound, people get scared because they look at the huge monkey walking in and they think that it's the same monkey who just left a few days back and who destroyed and burnt the Lanka. So there's a lot of grapevine, the whispers go on that, oh my God, he has again returned and there's a problem. And Angad obviously makes a huge lot of noise and that scares everybody. And that's how he enters the court of Ravan. Now, before I jump into the next phase of this conversation, let me have your thoughts, Raju, on this portion.
Yes, brother. Yeah. So we because it's a very nice case study that actually we can take up to understand uh, what sort of devotees are around Lord Ramachandra, and I'm sure it is this case across avatars. We see similar things even happening with Swami, uh, similar kind of temperaments and mentalities. So you have one envoy uh, called Hanuman, who was first sent by Rama. And now, on the contrary, you have another. Now, Rama is sending another person at a different point of time, just on the verge of the war. Even now, Angad is going. And look at the compare and if you compare and contrast these two characters, uh, Swami in the description, Swami writes that first when Hanuman jumped, yet he's continuously chanting Rama's name, and and it is always on a softer note. The first one he meets is apart from these minor obstacles called Lankini and others, but the first major encounter is with Vibhishana, who is Rama's devotee, and they talk less about Sita, less about the mission, and more about Rama. And on the contrary, you look at Angada. Angada is a prince. He is used now at this point of time to convey to Ravana that a royalty is being sent. The matter is severe, is serious. And Angada enters, and Swami very clearly writes, Swami says, he pushes around people, he displays great self confidence. And Angada encounters Ravana's son, and that Ravana's son kicks Angada. And Angada, in turn, he just picks him up and thrashes him to the ground and kills him instantly, which kills him instantly. So, you on on the contrary, we never see Hanuman, and it was only Lankini because she wanted it. She provoked him. Even he did not want to encounter. He did not want to aggravate the situation with Lankini, but it was Lankini who kept dissuading Hanuman unless and until that point of time where violence was the only resort that he had, and he had to kill her to bypass her. But here is Angada who enters with violence. Who is that brash little prince? Probably in some sense very hot-blooded. He wants to prove his worth, and he is relying. Swami uses the word self-confidence, and there Swami uses entire devotion. Mind is on Ramachandra, and everywhere, wherever Hanuman was asked, Hanuman's standard reply first it starts off with Dasoham Kosarindasa. I am the Dasa of Ramachandra. But here, on the contrary, Angada doesn't say it. Swami writes very clearly, says, I am Rama's envoy. He doesn't say Dasa. I am a representative of Rama. And that individuality, that being a
Raju,
representative of Rama.
Raju, we'll discuss this envoy and messenger, but I wanted to clarify that it was not the Ravan's son that Angada took fight with. Actually, if I am correct, he writes it like he's going and Ravan's son encounters him and confronts him, and in confrontation he tries to hit him, and
Kicks him.
Angada avoids him, and Angada avoids him. He doesn't let him touch. But in that swing, he catches his leg and swings him on the ground. So that is how he writes. So it is not Angad who is taking a fight. It
Right,
is
right, correct.
Angad is kind of no nonsense. He has his own dignity. You cross your boundary and you get punished. So there
You're
is
right.
no mercy there. So Angad does not fight. That's what I wanted to clarify. That I feel
No, correct.
that's what I read. It is written that he goes, confronts Ravan's son, wanted to kick him. Angad
The
avoids,
avoid
catches his legs, and swings him down on the ground, and that's how he finishes. And that sends terror message to the whole city that okay, the
Yes.
monkey has turned back.
Yes, so I was only sorry, I was only contrasting probably the usage of yukti. For example, all Hanuman, he shortens himself. He waits for the evening to come. Then he tries to avoid attention. So all that usage of all those ashtasiddhis, Hanuman does it very nicely. But on the contrary, Angada is too conspicuous.
Yeah,
Just to be seen. He,
because he's like an envoy, right? He's like an
yes,
envoy, so he doesn't have to be worried about who is looking at what. So that's why I guess Bhagwan must have he's used the term confidence, self confidence. So because
confidence.
he's fearless, Lord Ram has blessed him to go and just teach the lesson to Ravan. So he has literally come to teach lesson to Ravan. He's the final, like Krishna going to the Kaurava's court in the final argument, and he says, "Give me 5 villages." Right? In that tone, the tone is very authoritative because now you are representing the king and authoritatively negotiating the deal. So negotiation cannot happen by just a communicator. Negotiation, you need to be authoritative, right? I have an authority to do something, and that is how Angad has been prepared by Ram to go. But
Yeah,
Raju, here let's have a discussion on this, because the way he is explained, when he enters the hall, he sees Ravan, and we have discussed that when Hanuman enters Ravan's court and he sees Ravan on the throne, Angad also sees Ravan. Both of them see Ravan with 10 heads. There's a very clear depiction, even in Valmiki Ramayana, and Bhagwan also says that Ravan is sitting with his 10 heads. So 10 head is not an imaginary or a symbolic way of saying, but it was a physical appearance of Ravan. Maybe Ravan used the 10 heads to showcase his strength and keep people always in the awe of him. So he was sitting there. Angad also sees him. Hanuman, on one hand, looks at him and he admires him. He says, "Wow, what grandeur!" And Brother Anil, last time he mentioned, like from a devotee's perspective, Hanuman being Rudra avatar, so he had that mercy, the grace, and love for Ravan. But Angad has no such feelings. So, but Angad's description of Ravan is very different. Angad describes Ravan as ugly 10-headed person, black
black.
in color. Black in color. Very strange, eh? How the two
Absolutely.
depictions are there. On one, Hanuman describes him with such a glory, and then he says, "Alas, you have this one bad quality." And Angad, on the other hand, looks at him and he says, "He's totally bad. He's totally bad. He's black in color, ugly with 10 heads. What is wrong with him?" So imagine the contrast. How do you look at it?
Absolutely, brother. I think Swami is very beautifully has already conveyed that message in that story of the moon, that as is the mind, so is the world. Yata drishti tata srishti. So Angad Hanuman is far more intellectual, high, highly devoted, and he looks at when he looks at Ravana, those are the qualities that actually are reflecting from Ravana. So that's why we see Hanuman kind of taking an awe for Ravana's splendor. He recognized Ravana's intellectual capabilities. And Swami also mentioned that both of them talk in a dialect that no other in the court can understand. Only they both are conversing in that tongue. On the contrary, we have Angada, who is a prince who has actually, apart from all the things said and done, yes, he's a great devotee of Rama. But now this is the time where you look at if you look at just on a psychological step of the junctures of Angada, there was at a point of time Angada had an opportunity to prove himself. When he was sent on the mission to find Sita, they come to the ocean shores, and he is not able to fly. It is actually Hanuman who takes the entire glory, and Hanuman ends up flying, and Angada has apparently lost that opportunity to prove himself. Now again, one more opportunity has come to Angada to prove himself. Now he has to utilize it fully, and he has Rama's blessing as well as Rama's selection. But nevertheless, there is that. I'm sure it would have been a bit of that anxiety. Probably whatever small it is, but there would have been that bit of anxiety to prove himself, and that anger. That how can Rama, such a noble person, be wronged? That anger, all that is actually reflecting back to Angada as a ugly looking Ravana. I think Swami very subtly telling us a message about these personalities.
See, another, we can look at it also that, he's young, obviously, and
Yes.
he's a prince, young prince, and he has been sent with a very specific argument that you have to go and try to convince, teach, and convert Ravan if possible, and last resort before war. So look at his opening statement. Like we saw, as you mentioned, Hanuman's opening statement was, "I am, dasasya kaushalendrasya." So here, how he starts, and Ravan, Angad, when he enters, he says, "As a friend of my father, I'm here for you. That because you are a friend of my father, okay, and I'm here to advise you to save your clan." Can you imagine if you talk to an egoistic person like that? That I'm here to save your clan. Listen to me. That person will automatically get aggravated. And then they have a very serious discussion, or I would say a dialogue between Ravan and Angad, wherein they talk about political morality, they talk about, you know, morality in their behavior, in their strengths, everything they're discussing and
Their own
countering is
friendship,
done by Angad.
their own
And I
relationship with his
Yes,
father.
yes, father. Actually, Ravan, it seems, tries to even persuade Angad, saying that, you are son of my great friend, join me. And Angad laughs at him, and he even tries to instigate Angad by saying that you are supporting Ram, who actually killed your father.
Yeah,
And then that counter Angad again gives him. And there, the conviction of Angad is another a beauty to admire. How Angad has played the whole part, and it seems, and there's another beautiful, mention of Bhagwan's story, is that in that discussion, Angad gets aggravated. So you never find Hanuman getting aggravated. Hanuman is
yeah,
always admiring, always in the contemplation of Lord Ram. Angad gets angry, and he slaps on the ground. He slaps his palm on the ground with anger. It seems that the thrust is so hard that even the earth shakes, and the throne of Ravan shakes so much that he topples. Ravan falls down. His 10 heads, like the crowns, they roll off. Angad picks up 4 of them. And this is the writing of Bhagwan. Bhagwan, Angad picks up 4 of them and he swirls it out towards where Ram was. And it seems that 4 crowns fall right near Sri Ram. And the monkeys who were around Bhagwan, they pick it up and wondering like, where did that come from? Am I something falling from the sky, right? Nobody knows. So they picked it up and they said, wow, where it has come from? And they look at it and they say, it's a beautiful crown which has got some precious stones and gems studded into it. So they are admiring that and they're looking at everybody, is where did it come from? And Ram smiles in acknowledgement because Ram understands where it is, whose it is, and how it has been sent here. But Bhagwan does not write anything more than that. But the beauty of it is that imagine like what kind of persona you throw something from the court and it goes straight in the Suvarna mountain head where Ram is sitting. So you can imagine the caliber of Angad that we are looking at here. So it is not an ordinary young lad or a prince who is walking in. He has his own caliber and for
absolutely,
which Ram selected him, right? Do
absolutely.
you have anything about that, discussion part? Like,
Yes, but and if you look at the flow of the discussion also, First, Angad starts off with, "I am Rama's envoy, and you and my father were friends of old." And and then he goes on, as you said, he goes on to talk about saving the clan and all that. Now, look at how Ravana is playing off. Means Swami writes that line. Hearing this, Ravana was rendered stiff and silent, but he soon overcame the reaction and said, "True, true. I remember there was a monkey of that name in the olden days. Are you his son? Hello, Angada. You seem to have been born in that clump as a spark of fire." He's shaken because he did not expect Vali's son to come and confront him. He has only heard of those rumors that Rama killed Vali, and here is Vali's own son. Means the shock that actually would have been on Ravana's impact on psychological makeup. That here is a person whose father was killed by Rama, and yet this fellow comes as Rama's envoy. The loyalty that Rama is able to pull out, the loyalty that Rama is able to extract out of Angada is a complete contrast to the loyalty that he has extracted, that what loyalty his brother and his five ministers have displayed. Just the other day, his close, is the wisest of the three, Vibhishana, ran away along with the five brothers. And Ravana is in that state, and Angada is striking as an envoy in that moment. And imagine what shock it takes. That, "Arey," and so cleverly, this fellow begins to play that, "You come to my side, it is Rama who killed your father." And yet, Angada is not dissuaded. In fact, this beautiful line where Swami writes, he says, "Angada, unlike Hanuman, who actually pitches the intensity of the conversation rises slowly and slowly, but the second paragraph of Angada's conversation itself is very harsh. He says, 'Ravana, your days have come to an end. You will soon reach your old friend Vali. He can tell you there the consequences of opposing Rama. Equipped with 20 eyes, you are nevertheless blind. Burdened with 20 appendages called ears, you are deaf. Caught in the thick night of ignorance, you strut in pride, proclaiming yourself great. Sinner, villain, blinded by pride, demon." Imagine the second paragraph itself, you're blasting Ravana. Ravana is so instigated. The intensity of the entire conversation is very high. The emotions are running quite high, and in that moment when Angada slaps, I'm sure Ravana would not have expected that his throne would shake and he would fall. Swami writes that he falls in such a way that he becomes unconscious, and
No,
he
that is
wakes.
literal. That is literal. That is literal.
Oh,
That is
okay.
fantastic. Yeah, that he mentioned that when he's Angada is shouting at him and Ravan gets very upset because he's like,
Yeah.
can you imagine? It's very worth imagining, right? Ravan will get very upset about it. And what is it? He gets up and he commands. He says, lift him by
Yes.
leg and throw him in the floor and splinter his head. Saying that, Ravan enters his inner chamber. He leaves the court. And here Meghnad gets up, and Meghnad gets up to take the challenge, and Angada screams loudly. Listening to this commotion, Ravan again comes back.
Yes. Yes.
So you can visualize the whole scene, like Ravan is getting up, going inside, and there again he hears a commotion. He can't hold it. He comes back again, and there he sees Meghnad walking up to Angad, and Angad has put his leg down on the floor, on the ground, and he's trying to shake it. And he could not. He tried to pull Angad, lift Angad, but he could not move his leg even for an inch. And they write many other people, even as soldiers, including Devantaka. Everybody tries, ministers try, but nobody was able to move Angad's leg even by an inch. And Ravan gets so, like, shocked looking at it, and in his rage, he comes down. Now, normally we have heard that Ravan, Angad doesn't allow him to touch his feet, but Bhagwan writes here that Ravan also attempts. He holds his leg and tries to shake, and Angad laughs at it. And there he laughs and he says to Ravan, "Hey Ravan, you're a foolish fellow. Instead of catching my feet, go and catch the feet of Ram. He will not only forgive you but accept you." And but when he realizes that Ravan is not giving heed to him, Angad shakes his leg. Now, Ravi, imagine a huge monkey, Ravan at his feet. And they say Angad shook his leg in such a way, in such a vigor, that
Yes.
Ravan
False.
topples,
Topples and
falls,
becomes conscious.
and falls and becomes unconscious. Can you imagine? Like I'm ever since I've read this, I'm like, wow, what kind of shake it must be. And Ravan gets unconscious. And there is
Totally
where
different
the
topic.
humiliation of Ravan and everything happens, right? And Angad realizes that literally there is no other way except war, and there is nothing which can stop it now. And he leaves the court and jumps off back to Ram and reports him the whole thing. Now look at this, the whole, as we are looking at this, that when you go as an envoy and when you go as a messenger, there is a lot of difference in approach. But look at the grandeur of it. I would, Raju, actually, I would like, let's have few minutes. We have some time. I would like to, discuss this part. And, in the court of Ravan, whatever happened, but it is worth little bit of time to really understand the messenger and envoy part of it. As we have discussed it more, but in a definition way, an envoy is a messenger who represents the king, who
Yes.
goes and negotiate, who talks as a king, as being. So he's actually representing Ram. At that point of time, envoy, if he makes a commitment or if he does something, it can be considered as Ram doing it. So envoy is a representative of the king or the messenger directly. So he's conveying. A messenger is a person who is just supposed to convey and do nothing. He cannot do anything more than convey a message. And that is why you we find that when we are discussing Hanuman, I feel so now, is Hanuman never takes ownership of any statement. Hanuman has never taken anything which he says that I am doing or I am telling you. He only says, I am servant of Ram, and here, Ravan, what has happened to you? Go come to Ram and he'll be fine. I'm just conveying the message to you that returns Sita mother to him. So there's a very beautiful difference of as an envoy, Angad approaching and the messenger. And probably that is why I feel when you are talking about the aggressiveness of Angad, the buoyancy of a youth is because he's an envoy. He's a king himself. So he's representing Ram. He's not conveying only a message of Ram. He's representing him. So he cannot be like light. He cannot be. You can't touch him. You can't insult him. So in a way, that's why he swung that Ravan's son and killed him right there. He even had the guts to shake Ravan because he was representing Ram. I think this is a phenomenal aspect of Angad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Rama's selection is also so beautiful. I mean, he if you look at the damages that these two characters have done, the messenger goes and burns Lanka, while the envoy goes and picks up the crowns itself. And I can't imagine the insult. You take away four crowns out of the 10 and throw it to Rama's, and because for the rest of all the days, he would have been just with the six crowns. It was such a starking and staring insult. Whenever Ravana would have come into the court, probably he would have had those six crowns, and because the rest four are missing. And Angada, both of them kill Ravana's sons, but Hanuman's reason is very different compared to Angada. Hanuman wants to get an encounter or an audience with Ravana, while there is no such. Angada is quite direct. He kills Ravana's son because that fellow dared to insult Angada, and he walks into, as Swami writes, into Ravana's hall uninvited, just unbashed. He just walks in, not even caring about. Swami says that looking at him, the courtiers were actually were laughing at Hanuman when he came in, but here they were fear stricken. Swami uses the word they were like in a stupor. They wanted to just fall unconscious, so that they're so scared, so that they don't get into any uninvited consequences.
Yeah, it's like, if you really look at the whole concept of it also, Bali, we have already discussed this story. Bali kept Ravan under his armpit for days to finish his Sandhya Vandanam. And now you have Bali's son who shakes his leg and Ravan is unconscious, who slaps the earth and there is an earthquake. So you can imagine what kind of persons we were. Okay, brother Anil is here, so I think we are on the closing side, but let's. Sai Ram, brother Anil,
Sai Ram.
we
Karan,
missed you on this whole journey,
Yeah. I
but
just was listening to this thing. A few points I thought I will add to
please
this.
add
See,
here.
uh, what Swami used to tell when Krishna went for Rayabaram with Kauravas. Krishna very well knew that war is inevitable. It was not that Krishna was going with the hope that there will be a truce and war can be avoided, right? Similarly, Rama also knew that war is inevitable. It's not that Rama did not know, and by sending Angada, there will be a truce coming in. No. Rama's purpose, if you really see from the perspective of the divine, it was not to have truce with Ravana because he knew anyway it's not going to happen. His purpose, if you now subtly see, by sending Angad, he is now conveying this fellow's father who was more powerful than you. I killed him, right? And he has come as an envoy on my behalf, right? So the terror in that fact that Vali has been killed, right, by a single arrow by Rama gets registered in the mind of Ravana, right? It creates a sense of fear in him, right? First point. Second thing is Hanuman was sent as a messenger to Mother Sita. Hanuman was never sent as a messenger to Ravana.
Ravana, yes, yes, yes,
Was sent to Mother Sita. It
yes.
was Hanuman's prerogative of meeting Ravana. Rama didn't ask Hanuman to go and meet Ravana, right? So Rama, when Lord sends, no, he sends people to behave. We have seen this with Swami, no. Anywhere we are sent, he is to ensure that his students or whoever is sent is treated royally. He will not accept his people to be treated as anything less than royalty. Right? So, had he sent Hanuman to Ravana, he would have told him, behave royally. Don't behave like a servant. Right? Behave royally. Hammer the fellows out of shape. I am behind you. Right? That is how he sent Angad. He didn't send him to behave like a servant because you are representing God. Now, where's the question of having any fear, and where's the question of being like a servant, right? So, when Swami said, this is from where how Swami used to send us to various sportsmen used to come. We used to be sent to the military camps around in Bangalore to speak with them and get some commandos to train our students. And I used to remember the way we used to be sent. Swami will select the highest official general, General Chibbar, who was Major General himself, or Malhotra, right, who was the army chief, to accompany us. So when we enter, you know how we used to enter, as the army chief used to enter. We never entered any place as
But
though we are
see, that's
seeking
why that's why we start getting false notion that we are something great.
that, correct. But we have to understand when Swami sends somebody, no. See, Swami sent Kasturi. You were recalling that last time, right? To
Yes, yes.
for the world tour. Then Professor Anil Kumar sir for the world tour. How were they received? Did Swami allow them to be received in anything in small way? No. So
No,
if Rama sends someone, he will ensure that they have to be received in a royal way. They have to be treated in a royal way. Anything less than that and anything less behavior than that, Rama also would not have liked it. He would have told him behave like a king only before sending Angad. right? So there are a few thoughts I thought I will.
No, no, beautiful. Actually, the whole discussion is such a remarkable to see the difference between Hanuman and Angad's approach. And there is a maturity and there is a youthfulness, but behind both of them, it is Ram's guidance and Ram's control, right?
Yeah,
So we can learn from both approaches that at what is needed at point of time, one has to be like that. So I'm sure if Hanuman was given this task, he would have done the similar, you know,
yeah, yeah.
drama. And much maybe much harsher. We don't know because he knew everybody. But here, Angad had to be
No,
sent.
but by sending Angad, no, Lord Rama was conveying lot many things subtly to Ravan,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's why he was selected.
Like what?
As we
Wali.
discussed, no, Wali, the death of Wali immediately will get registered in his mind, right? Because he is seeing the son of Wali right there.
But it is also, in a way, look at it to reinstate Angad also as the crown prince.
Yeah, yeah, all that
Because
is no, no. See, that no
everything
near
is happening.
Swami, one statement Swami used to very often make when some work used to be given, and if he says, Swami, please bless me to give the to do the work properly. Swami used to invariably say, if I have given you the work, will I not give you the strength to do the work? So, like we always say, no, it is not the capability, it is only the availability that matters near Bhagwan, right? So, whether it was Angad or somebody else, yes, I am not as looking, means no downgrading the abilities of Angad. But what I'm saying is, when Lord selects, it really doesn't matter whom he selects. He gives him the strength to um, carry out the task, right?
In one
Of course.
discourse, Swami makes this beautiful line where he says, Hanuman, it seems Swami is actually quoting Hanuman, where he says, Agnya Telugu, it is in Agnya Raksha.
అవును
Command
ఆగ్నేయ
itself, command itself is the protection, it's the armor.
Yes, of
So,
course. If he gives you, like that's why we always say, if Swami has said do it, that means the work is already done. We just have to stand there. So when he says the hospital will be made, it is already done. We just have to be there. That's it. That's planetarium, construction of a planetarium within unprecedented time. All that we have witnessed.
Not only
So I wonder,
unprecedented.
like,
Planetarium means I'll recall a small, quick miracle before, maybe though it's a little late. Planetarium, no, it's a geodesic dome. Okay.
yeah,
Next day, Swami was supposed to inaugurate. And the previous day at around afternoon time, 1:32 or so, I was in post graduation that time. So I remember this very well. The geodesic, those all those triangular things that we saw see on the top, no, those arrived
it's a
from
frontal
Bangalore.
projection.
They
Hmm.
were transported from abroad, from Bangalore airport. They were brought here, and by the time they arrived, it was one somewhere around afternoon. And the engineers immediately, few engineers from abroad had come to fix it with the workers. They started, and then they realized that it's almost impossible task because it's a geodesic dome. No, correct things have to be picked to be placed in their proper places. It's not that you just put the sheets together and it becomes a normal semicircular or a hemisphere, right? Those triangles have to be correctly chosen. Which one has to be where? It has to be correctly chosen at that size. Imagine, right? So they said that this is not going to happen. We can't do it in half a day. Okay, it will take minimum 4 days. This was the timeline given by the engineers sent by that company. Okay, so
That's
Indra was
and that's
puffing and
done by boys.
then
And
Hitler was puffing and panting, and he said it cannot be tomorrow. Swami is inaugurating. What should I do now? So he ran to Bhagwan, and Swami said, "You take postgraduate boys from hostel. They'll do it." So we went there. We had no inclination. I was also part of it. That's why I'm telling you this. We had absolutely no idea that they have to be placed in a particular order in sequence. We have to see the number and which number goes where. We have to carefully open only that box and then place them. We had absolutely no idea about all that because we didn't speak to the engineers. We straight went, started opening the boxes and started placing them, right? And it formed. We have no idea. Afterwards, we were told that this cannot be formed like that. Those engineers came and said, "How did this happen? How did this happen? What is there?" We just opened the boxes and started placing. That's all. Some boys were standing on the top, somewhere on the opening the boxes. Like that, we have this queue. No, you keep sending one
Naran,
after you
Naran
take.
Seva, Naran
That's
Seva training.
and Seva training. That's all. It just got placed. How did it get placed? Bhagwan was there behind. That's all.
Beautiful.
Bhagwan does. Every structure there, no, is a miracle actually, in Patti. Behind every structure is a miracle.
It is so beautiful. It is. Hospital is the same thing happened to hospital also. Even our Shanti Vedika. Oh my God. It's a crazy stories on that. Everything was done in such a haphazard manner, apparently, that
Apparently
nobody could believe that something like that would ever finish. But everything gets finished on time, and we are all laughing at it. Great. Again, thank you very much. I think it's a beautiful journey. So hopefully we'll continue this again, and we'll take the journey forward of after the humiliation of Ravan, how he responds and how things turn. So thank you, brothers. Thank
Sai
you for
Ram.
joining, and thank you all for watching. And let's pray to Bhagwan to continue. Sai Ram Bhaiya.
Sai Ram.